live on the stream. Hey, everybody, I'm just finishing the funeral. Good to see you, Jen and Carolyn, and those of you who are on YouTube. I'm eating. You're seeing me before. You're seeing me now before we go live. So you get to see everything. Wave at me or say hi to me. Let me make sure that you can see me, that you can hear me, because you're able to see me before everybody else hears me. Got to get these in. I'm going to share. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? I better turn down my phone because it's just going to feed back. Would you be, let's see, share, my neighbor. I just hate that they got rid of my share. They got rid of my share.
Oh, it's terrible.
Got rid of my share. Katrina says she can't hear you. Can't hear us. I cannot hear you that well. Are we? Yep, is our streaming volume low? You brought it back up?
Yep.
And
yep, there it is.
Give me a little bit, Mike. Give me a little bit more in my ear. All right. Well, it is a. So I want to say this because I'm late getting on the air because again we buried a wonderful member of the True Bethel family, Janice Bell. Now, Evangelist Bell was very faithful, always here. Always. It was only a few weeks ago we were in the hallway, and she was, I think she was working the prayer room on Sunday morning.
Yep. Called
me over to tell me something private, and next thing I know, a few weeks later, I'm told she's in the hospital, and she went on to be with the Lord. She was a faithful member. I will say this: I think one of the last vehicles we bought, it was because of a donation from her, and she didn't earmark it for anything. She just said, "Here, I want the church to have this," and we immediately invested into helping other people. She would be on our food bus, our clothing bus, any place we needed her to be, and even if we didn't ask her, she would volunteer. She liked being out on the streets helping people. And you would see her all the time. Whenever our buses are moving, she was a part of it. And her son today did her eulogy. And if any of you were in the sanctuary, my goodness, he just talked about her life in such a great way. And he talked about the food stamps. He talked about the government cheese and how if everybody got one, they had 3 blocks, and how you knew that night they were going to have something made with cheese sandwiches, macaroni cheese. So I just take this moment to honor her and for all that she did for people. And he talked about how her journey began here when this building was Twin Fair and how it ended here. Began here because when she would party, he said they would come get the party supplies from Twin Fair. And then her life changed, and she came back to the Twin Fair as a saved woman of God. So we're going to miss her. We're going to miss her.
Yeah, she was on the go whenever ministry was going, and whether it was the vehicles, if the ministry was moving, she was there.
That was her favorite part. Yeah. Was being able to do for other people. I say all the time, I preach on Sunday morning, but it's not my favorite part.
Right.
My favorite part is when the church is doing something. And I don't mean just preaching at another church. I mean when we out doing the work of the Lord. There ain't no sense getting the word of the Lord if you won't do the work of the Lord. So she's going to be missed. I don't know about you all out there, but and other churches, but True Bethel has lost some warriors over this last year. And it wasn't due to COVID. It was different things that people pass from and transition. And so when we back in full swing, there's going to be some empty seats. There's going to be some significant empty seats in that those people who we really, really depended on and worked hard in this church have gone. Many of them have gone on. So we got to keep doing what we do. Shooting in FedEx. Information still coming forward. The person who was wielding the gun, the reports say he killed himself. I don't know all the details. I have been away from the news for about an hour and something, so I don't know. I know they had a press conference. So I know that there's a lot of talk about gun control. I've said this over and over, and people didn't, I think people thought that because I was a registered Democrat that I was going to agree, for instance, with the SAFE Act of New York State, and I don't agree with all parts of it. I believe that if you are sane and you are capable and you are able and you are legal, that you have by our Constitution the right to bear arms. But I don't believe that guns should be in everybody's hands. I don't believe that everybody's responsible. I don't believe that everybody is mentally capable of handling a firearm in their hand, including, which leads me to the segue, some of the people who wear badges. Let me say this, and it's a shame that we always have to say this, because if you talk about improving something, some people think you mean the whole system is corrupt. I don't. I have members of this church who are police officers. I have members of this church who do community service, although they wear a badge. And I'm not talking about after work, I'm talking about during work. So I want to be clear that when we talk about police reform, I'm not saying that every police officer or every person who has a badge is a bad person, because that's just not true. It is not true. And maybe what I'll do before I get off the air, you all can tell me some of those police officers out there that you want to honor, that you say, this police officer does a great job in our community. Because a lot of times we can go negative and then we forget that there is some positive. So you could throw that up on Facebook, or you could throw it up on YouTube, any police officer that you feel is doing a great job in our community, and a little bit about why. I think that's important that we lift up good ones. But we got a 13-year-old boy, 13 years old. I don't know if you all saw the tape. And one thing about Chicago, they share the tape. As painful as it is, there's no hiding it. Now, I know that portions of the tape were blurred, and I definitely understand, because if that was my 13-year-old son on the ground, I don't necessarily want people to see him in that condition. The people who need to see it, his family and others, I'm sure, were allowed to see it. But I again haven't been able to catch up on the news in the last hour or so. But when I saw the tape last night, I don't know. I know they claim he had a gun, right? That there were shots fired.
I'm reading through it right now.
And there's technology in Chicago because of so many shootings that when shots are fired, it'll give approximate location in different neighborhoods. So shots are fired. Police show up. You see the young man running, definitely. What I did not see, and you all can tell me if I'm right or wrong, I did not see the young man turn around with a gun. When the shots were fired from the officer, the young man has his hands in the air. From what I saw, now you all tell me if I'm wrong. Now, let me say this, that in the heat of the moment, a lot of things happen quickly. Let me just put that out there. And if it was dark, that's one thing, but it's well lit, number one, at least from the video. And when the young man turns around at the command, he's shot. So I read an article, I can't find it now, and I should have printed it. about police reform, and that police reform has to go beyond saying we're going to do more training.
Absolutely.
It is a total culture that has to be redone. An entire culture of what policing in America is about, even the word policing. You know, when you know, and this is my opinion. I'm a citizen. I get to express my opinion without it being a political hit on somebody. I'm saying what Darius Pridgen feels. That unless we change the culture from that of paramilitary. Now, I'm talking as a veteran. Excuse me, I got to have my vitamin C because I've been going all morning with eating nothing. In the military, your main job is basically to follow orders, because that's what they teach you. You just follow. When I say blindly, the military breaks you down from your individual self and causes your brain that when they say attention, you jump to attention. That's military. That when they say at ease, you go at ease. And for weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks of basic training and then beyond, you're constantly trained in the military to follow orders. And when they tell you to shoot, you shoot. You don't ask. That's military. You don't say, you can literally be court-martialed if, which is charged with a crime. If you're told to shoot and you don't shoot, you don't get a chance to say, well, I don't think that this is the time to shoot. No. They tell you to shoot, you shoot. That's the main thing they drill into the head of a soldier, the main thing they drill into the head of a Marine, Air Force, Navy. You follow orders. And that when there is a threat, we take the threat out. I am a veteran. I know how I was trained. We were not trained to shoot to hurt. You were trained that if somebody's shooting at you, you shoot to kill. They train you on center of mass. When we were doing training with M16s and all that, you weren't trained to shoot them in the leg. No, you were trained center of mass. You going for that heart. You going for where all of the vital organs are. You're going for the center of mass. Now, if then that's military, and then we have paramilitary for police, there is a different mentality in the training and the culture. You cannot simply say we're going to do more training. There has to be a change in the culture. And when you do not then fit into that culture, you can no longer be employed. I don't know of any job in the United States of America in which, if there is a culture, if you go to Delaware North right now and you work at the airport in one of their restaurants, there is a culture that they expect to be followed. And if you don't follow that customer service culture, you lose a job, period. You lose a job. If you're working at Buffalo General right now and you're a nurse, and they say this is how we're going to operate, and you don't operate that way, you lose a job. That's just it. But you have to define what the culture is. My master's is in organizational leadership, and when you're trying to turn around an organization, you don't simply turn it around by training. You have to establish what are the core values. What are we about? So when we talk about police reform, it has to be beyond, well, we're going to give them some sensitivity training. Okay. Anybody can go through training and listen to words and pass a quiz. It doesn't mean that the culture has changed. It doesn't mean that everybody on the force knows. We are going from a paramilitary model to a customer service model, or whatever it is that the
safety.
culture should be. For me, it ought to be, I mean, people are saying public safety. I think it ought to be customer service. I am here to service the taxpayers, all of them, including black and brown. And what happens is, I think that there are some people who, if you don't know even the culture where you're policing, and your culture is that certain people of certain skin tones are dangerous, then right away I feel like, oh boy, I feel like a greater threat when it is a brown or black person, possibly, than when it is someone who is not of color. Now, somebody can say, you're playing the race card. No, I'm playing the facts. I'm giving the receipts. I'm playing it back of what we keep experiencing and what we keep going through. What no one out there can argue with me about is just look at the numbers, the sheer numbers of people of color who are unarmed, who are shot and killed. What were you about to say, Mark?
You have so much there that I'm trying to unpack, because I've been saying lately more and more regarding military. First of all, shout out to anyone who has served.
Amen.
Because I literally talk to Leo all the time, like the mindset to be able to go into another country, fight people you don't know by orders of someone you don't know, and just blindly trust everything.
Yes.
That's
military, and that's what we're taught in the military.
So then when, like you said, when you start talking about the culture of police, you also then have to look at where police in this country started, and majority of them started as slave hunters. And the police was those slave hunters that were literally just deputized to be able to go anywhere and retrieve fugitives.
Yeah.
So now we get to 21st century policing, and it's still kind of that same mindset of we're always on a hunt. Not how do we diffuse, but how do we neutralize individuals instead of the situation. And I forget the year, and this is final thought right here.
It's fine.
Was the FBI even released a report that stated that white supremacists were infiltrating police organizations to be on the street, to basically do what they used to do in the woods, but now have a badge.
Yeah.
And I think all of that gets swept under the rug. And now, like you said, now we're here, and it's constantly happening. And there's a group, a generation that's getting fed up.
Yeah.
And this is turning into a powder keg that I don't know if this country is ready for it.
Yeah, and I think that what we saw last summer, if any, now, first of all, when this trial is over, if this man, this is just my thought, depending on what that verdict is, I think either way there's some trouble, but I think that found not guilty is huge trouble. I think found guilty, you still have trouble, because you have now a segment in America that doesn't believe that there's COVID, that wants white America to remain as the dominant race. And at the end of the day, I think either way, that people ought to be ready for some type of unrest. That's number one. But I think when we talk about real police reform that is effective, and I'm going to keep pressing for this, because I'm at least in a position where I can let my voice be heard. But I truly think, I'm going to say several things. Number one, we a union town. Let's, Everybody out there, let's be honest.
Most mega cities are.
Most mega cities are. We are a town that has strong unions, from teachers unions, the hospital union. Let me tell you, we almost didn't get parking in the Fruit Belt. Not because people didn't want it, but the union was afraid, one of the unions, about their workers. And especially, and which I support this, where do our lower paid workers work? Park. And they fought for that. So unions have their place. I am a union supporter. Let me be clear. If I had my way, and I'm pressing for this, I think we have to stop fighting against one another because it clouds up everything and we get nothing done. So y'all know I'll say it. I'll say it right here. You don't have to guess. So the other week when I voted against sending the plan, the police plan to the governor, I'm not fighting any person. So I want everybody to get that in your head. I'm not fighting the people who voted for it. I'm not fighting the administration. I just wanted time for the people to be heard. That's it.
That's it.
However, at the end of the day, I believe that you still need to work together, and we have to work with the union. Why? Somebody will say, no, you don't. Forget the union. If you don't work with the union, some things are contractual that will not be given up so that we can move toward real police reform. So that means communication. Mm-hmm. And I'm taking the class if I don't drop it by 3 o'clock today. So last night I'm studying this communication stuff, and I know this. From my bachelor's to my master's, I've learned it, but you forget about some of the formal lines, about communication, about there being a receiver, and that real communication allows feedback.
Yes.
Now, here it is. Now, if I drop out of school by 3 o'clock, then at least I got this part.
Absolutely. You got the refresher.
I got the refresher. That communication involves feedback. There is a person who gives it, there's information, there's a person who receives it, and then there's a loop, and that comes to feedback. As long as we all stay in our own silos about police reform, we will never, ever get to true reform that allows people to go home alive, especially black and brown people, and allows police officers to go home alive. I think that the winter time, people are like, okay, well, it's over. It's not over. It's not over until across, and I almost think that there's going to have to be a kind of federal change and federal input to say all across the United States. Because if we as cities don't have enough gumption to say, we've got to all sit down and really work this through. To me, police reform is as important as the civil, because it is a civil rights issue. Yep. But it's as important as when black people couldn't use a bathroom by whites. And it's as important to me as when children of color couldn't go to certain schools or drink out of certain faucets. It is important. And the reason is because some of the offsprings of those who were taught to be prejudiced now wear badges. Mm-hmm. And if we do not together, as Kamal says, working together works, and Al Warner, we must, I believe the people have given us a mandate. Fix this thing. And if we don't do that, and I want to say, and get mad at me if you want, congratulations to Carriel Horn.
Big ups.
Big ups. And if anybody says, oh, he's jumping on the bandwagon now, go Google it. Google Carriel Horn and put in plus Pridgen, and you'll see how far back that this has been important to me. I've had her on this show before there were any police protests. So please pass me with, oh, he only paying attention now because of no, and no. And the person who actually brought to the Common Council, Carriel's Law, you're looking at working with the community. So some would say, well, why would you be happy? I mean, the city's going to have to pay it. Now, I don't know if it's being appealed. I hope not. I say, as Monique wrote in her song, run her paper. Give her. I mean, I think the back wages would be until she reached 20, so you're talking about some months. And then the pension comes from the state. Give her the money
that she paid into.
Give her the money, and give her the money.
Absolutely.
Rashid says absolutely need federal input for real change. Yeah, I think if we don't reimagine policing and redo it to the place where because listen, I done talked to so many officers who are under stress, who become alcoholics, who it's just so stressful to do the job. I don't want a police officer in my neighborhood who's stressed out and jumping at every sound. I want them to go to work and I think, and somebody mentioned it the other day, and I know I say it over and over, like some of the officers in Canada, man. I tell this story all the time. I got pulled over in Canada, and I was apologizing. He's like, sir, do you know why I pulled you over? I was like, I couldn't even tell no story. Yes, I was speeding.
I was doing 100
yes.
on
No, I wasn't doing 100. I wasn't doing 100. But he's like, for your safety and the safety of others, you need to slow down. And I was like, I understand if I'm getting a ticket. Like, it was one of those things, like, I got it. It wasn't like, give me your driver's license. And and I think because there's a different culture. And I think that we can learn from those cultures. England, I think that we can learn from officers on the beat that only have a beat stick. Now, there's some neighborhoods, let's be honest, that our cultures have to change too.
Oh, big facts.
There's things that's got to change in our culture too. But I think that, but the problem is those who are being killed that we're talking about are not walking around with guns. These are unarmed, or at least someone who's not pointing a gun at an officer. So that's the difference. So before we mix up the apples and the pears.
And just like you have the story with I think it was an Army lieutenant who got pepper sprayed.
Yeah, dude.
While in uniform. Like, there's no discrimination on the discrimination. And that's what has, I think, everyone, like, if I could do something, I'm probably going to end up going to jail.
Yeah.
Because, I'm too fed up. I was even in the barber chair, and normally we talk latest events, news, and literally he just had some music on and was just like, there's too much. What more can you say?
It then comes out as frustration after a while because everybody won't be as calm as your barber. You know what I mean? Arlie Daniels says you're absolutely right. Most law enforcement agencies during slavery were deputized, just what you were talking about. I watched Harriet for the first time.
Okay.
I wasn't ready to watch it in the past few months. Same way where I really have to call back my sixth grade teacher because I haven't talked to him. I think I talked about that on the air.
Yes.
Yeah, I got to call him. And I'll keep riding past his shop, and it keeps saying closed, so I'm praying he's okay. I just could not talk to him because he was trying to convince me of why these names of certain individuals who owned those who are enslaved and all that should remain, and I just had to shut up. There's seasons, you just got to be quiet. You don't want to be rude. Just leave it alone.
And there's a new documentary out on Netflix that, almost like you said, like I could watch an episode, but then I hit my wall, and it's called Amend with Will Smith narrating, and it's talking about the 14th Amendment.
Yeah.
And it's solely about black folks don't want a lot. We just want, and I think as Dr. King said it, what America promised.
Yeah, yeah.
Equality for all.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
it.
exactly. And not to be demonized when we ask for it.
Right,
or we point out where the problems are. Ross says this is what Dr. King was talking about before his transition. And I do believe that. And I do believe that's why they killed him, is because he wanted to work together. And I want to be clear. I'm in a season in my life. I mean, first of all, the funeral here today, Bishop Curry was here. and Bishop Curry marched with us when Rashid and Janice and I were 20-something years old. What? No, I'm 50. Yeah, late 20s. And out here marching against violence and the stores that sold drug paraphernalia. And I found an article out marching. I'm out marching, had my little collar on, and we were marching against the store on Fillmore and Utica, right? The point is, I'm now at a point in my life that I've recognized that there's a time to protest, and there definitely is, because I do not believe we would have had Carrio's Law without it. I do not believe that certain things would have happened without that public pressure to say we want change. Absolutely. I don't believe it. I don't believe it would have happened. But after the protest, the question is, what are we going to do? Because you don't communicate arguing and hollering at one another. That's not communication, because there's no feedback. That loop doesn't come back up. And I think if we don't communicate, and this is where I'm at, we have to come together to make the change. And we can demonize the union, we can demonize police, we can demonize black and brown folks, or we can say, we're the taxpayers, we're the ones that want to be at the table. We want something totally different. I would love to see every police car in this city with either the words, what'd you say, public safety, whatever. It has to be all across the board. When M&T, and I know that when M&T wasn't as active, that, Westminster had its challenges. But when M&T went into Westminster and put their money and their branding and the best that they had there, it was a total different school. And this is no disrespect to, I don't even know who's in charge right now. Right. My point is, at this point, it's being closed, right? At the end of the day, if we're going to reimagine, it has to be a total change. Folks, I want you to hear me. I want police officers to go to work every day and like their job and like the people they serve. Mm-hmm. And I want people to go home alive. But I just don't think without radical change that says, I don't believe you get to that change in a couple months. No. I believe it takes years, but I believe in those years, you can't afford to leave the system like it is. Mm-hmm. Because it is like, this is what I feel like it is right now. It is like putting an explosive material and just waiting for somebody to drop a match. Because as soon as one thing happens, it explodes. Yep. But if you're working on it, and you're putting water on it, and you're decreasing that igniter, what might ignite, you will find that when something happens, at least people will say, but we're working on this. And this was an anomaly. Summertime is coming, folks. Mm-hmm.
We not here yet.
Ross replies to Arlie on Facebook. You're absolutely right. Most law enforcement agencies during slavery were deputized.
And I'll go back to another comment. So India said, going back to the unions in the Fruit Belt, they actually put parking stipends into the $11.99 contract as part of the work we did together.
Say that again. Say it again.
So $11.99 added parking stipends to their contract. And she said they did that after the work.
After the work. So this is what I mean about working together. The way we got Fruit Belt parking, there had never, ever been a resident parking in the city of Buffalo on a city street. It was working with the state. It was working with the administration. It was working with the council. But most of all, it was working with the people, and it was working with the unions.
Absolutely.
So we can say, bad union. I'm going to tell you this. My mother had a union. My father, I don't believe, had a union at Dresser, but my mother had a union. And that was important to the wages. It was important. Unions have their place. But you must, am I out of time? Oh, my goodness. Listen, listen, I'm going to throw it back to the station. I'm so sorry.
We can stay streaming. We just can't.
Right, no, we're getting ready to go. We're going to throw it. Brian K. Lewis, Funeral Homes, and Hobson's, the doctor of dry cleaning. I won't take up the time. I think there's somebody coming behind me. But what I would ask is that the station, if you could squeeze in those commercials, I apologize. I got too tied up. Until next week, Lord says the same. Power to the people.